Welcome to Inside the 87's, your home for updates of one of the top junior hockey programs in the EHL, located in the hockey hotbed of New Jersey, where hockey players are molded for the next level, the 87 way.
This week of Inside the 87's is a lot different, actually. We have taken the time to stop the interviews, stop talking about hockey in general, because we want to focus on what's going on in our country, in the world right now. We've been having conversations back and forth for the last 10, 11 days since the murder of George Floyd, and I personally have never been in a position to have a part in social media and in an organization such as the 87. So I really didn't know what to do. Like a lot of people, this is a very confusing time to know what's right, what's wrong, and what's going to offend people and what's not. I've been texting Adam back and forth, going through what should we do, how should we handle this situation. I personally put out statements on my Instagram, and I know that for organizations that have a big following, it's definitely way harder for them to put out a statement in such a small time. So I think what we want to do now is talk about, this is our statement. This is the 87's way, kind of sharing how they feel, what they're going through, and how they're going to promote justice and equality in the future, and really what this time has meant to them. So I wanted to just talk to Adam and talk to him about what's going on, what's happening in your mind, and really just take a step back and reflect.
Yeah, I think, from our standpoint, obviously the last 10, 11 days have not been easy. It's been a trying time in our country, both on a lot of different fronts. And for us, we were a team who did not post many different things. And I think for us, there was a specific reason behind it. I think for us, we wanted to sit back and listen and try to understand and try to relate as best as we possibly could. At the 87's, my job in particular as a head coach is to lead these young men and grow them into leaders. And if they're not leaders, show them how to be good teammates, how to be good colleagues. And sometimes if you're the leader, sometimes you have to remain quiet. You have to listen. You have to see where the fault lines are and how you can adjust to those things. And that's where I think we found ourselves, is we didn't want to make a statement just to make a statement. We didn't want to just, have an opinion and not have, a reason behind it. So I think the last couple of days we've sat back and kind of just watched everything. I think that's why social media has been so important and why, as you said earlier, for you feel like you're in a position now for the first time because social media now has a voice. And if you're on it, you have a voice. So I think we sat back and really kind of tried to relate, find ways to relate and listen to the stories as best we can, but understand that there is a problem. There is no denying that there is a problem in this country. And I think for us, from my standpoint as the head coach, I wanted my boys, and we'll talk about it when we get to camp, wanted them to see that sometimes the right decision or the informed decision is the best decision. And we wanted to sit back and listen and see what was out there. And that's what you have to do as a leader. And if you're not a leader, you're a good teammate. You're a guy who is maybe a 2 or a 3 in the room and do that. Find ways to support those people. And that's what we wanted to do here. As the 87's, we wanted to sit back and support and say, hey, we recognize that. And as we had mentioned before in our text last week, from my personal standpoint, I can't relate. I don't have that situation that a lot of Black Americans are going through right now. I can certainly say I feel some of it. We've talked about it before. I've been called a Jew before my entire life. I've been called a spick. I've been called a lot of things. I've been passed over jobs because I'm a young coach. In the middle of a game, if a ref looks over and sees me, a young guy, barking and yelling, and then looks over the other bench and it's an older gentleman, they usually get the call and I don't. Very minor if you really think about it, but I understand the frustration in my head just because they look at me and see something different, that I am, you know, younger, that I am of Latino descent, I am, you know, different in their mind. But the one thing that I said I had mentioned to you that I can't relate to is the fear. You know, I don't fear for my life, and I don't fear walking around my community that something can happen just by the look of what I am and who I am. You know, I don't have that, and that has been the scariest thought over the last couple of days for me, because I do love my life personally so much that the biggest thing I'm scared of is death, and to live that as a daily reminder that you're fearful of your life, it is no way to live, and we have to find ways to make that change. We have to find ways that you can go for a walk, you can do things and not be fearful of your life. You know, and that is the biggest thing I think from my perspective as Adam Hooley, the head coach, that I've taken away this past couple of days, is that it's so hard to relate to that, the fear of it, because if you don't live it, it's impossible. It's impossible to say you feel for it. You don't understand it is. When I grew up walking to school, I'd walk through neighborhoods, it'd be fine. You know, there'd be no worry of anything. You know, and when children of the Black community walk to school, sometimes they're walking through inner cities, and there is a fear of life. There is a fear of driving with your friends on a Friday night that I've done plenty of times, and just hanging out, and God forbid getting pulled over, and to have that, everyone gets nervous when you get pulled over, but to have that fear of, you know, something can snap out of nowhere, you just can't relate to that, and that I think is the biggest thing that we recognize and want to change. And I think it's a charge to players on my team. They're going to be our new generation, players that have been younger, that we have coached, that are in college now. They have the opportunity to change everything. They do it, and I want the forward momentum that we're making to continue and move us forward, because there has to be a change. There's no doubt about that. There's no ignoring that. There needs to be a change, and I'm hopeful that as young men of the 87's, they'll understand that, you know, when they get to school, they are leaders, and I want to see them lead in different ways, of whether that's on the ice, off the ice, in their communities. Find different ways to lead, and sometimes it's as simple as a donation, signing a petition, or making a statement on social media. But find ways to lead that is most effective to you. I think I saw a comment from Denzel Washington. He said that, you know, everyone has a different lane, you know, and everyone has a different avenue, but we need all those avenues to come together and do that. And it's okay if you're not another avenue. And I think that's stuck to me, because we don't have the voice of saying we understand, because we don't. But what is my voice? My voice is I have very impressionable young men from 17 to 21. So my job as a leader is to now make sure that when they get here this year, is to understand those topics and talk about those topics. Don't be fearful of those topics, and make sure that when they leave me, I have taught them something of being a better person and finding ways to make change. And if there is an injustice, speak up. Don't sit back and do those things. So I think that is our lane. That is my lane as a head coach. And I think as the 87's, our lane is to continue to make sure we're having that dialogue. But I don't think by not posting something, it set us back. I think it actually allowed us to have a little bit more of a clear vision of what we want to do, and recognize what we need to do is the biggest thing.
Yeah. And I think that going back to what you said about we as non-Black people in America cannot relate at all whatsoever. I mean, we can find ways to put it in our perspective and try and better understand and have a better knowledge of it, but we can't relate. As an Asian American, I can't relate to what Black, like, I know that when I get pregnant and have a baby, I'm not going to have to worry about having, you know, a birth that's might kill me. I am not fearful of getting pulled over and potentially going through some of the things that Black Americans go through. I definitely have recognized that. And I think something that we all need to do is just really open our eyes and listen. A lot of people are speaking without listening. And like you said, a great time.
Without a doubt, I think that is that, and sometimes again that is the right decision, and you have to find your balance of what it is. But I think again, just being honest and open, and I think for the youth of America to understand, you know, you can't relate to certain things, and that's okay. And you're going to have issues that people can't relate to, right? Mm-hmm. They just can't, you know. And I think in that scenario, as long as you continue to find ways to get back to yourself and understand, or at least acknowledge that, yeah, I can't understand that, but you know what, I can help fight that injustice of you shouldn't be fearful. We should make sure that you feel comfortable, and again, I think it goes back to coaching in general. I think it's just finding ways to connect, finding ways to make a change. If something isn't working, you have to make an adjustment, and this isn't working, and that's clear. Again, as I mentioned before, I think the rioters and looters, everyone recognizes that that's a wrong thing to do. That's taking away from that. I don't think that's even a thought in people's mind, and for people to harp on that too much, like everyone knows that is wrong. There's no need to harp on. Everyone knows it's wrong. The protesters know it's wrong. But I think it's finding and admitting that there is a problem that we have to address. And the rioting and looting is not it. It's the Black American right now who does not feel like they're at home. And our country is built on being home of the oppressed people, of the minority. How can we have one minority not feel like it's their home? We have to find ways to make it feel like it's their home, because just like for me, it is my home. I'm not fearful of that. I can walk around and feel proud to be an American. I am proud to be American. But I want my Black friends and my Black brothers and sisters to feel that. Like they should be able to feel that this is their home, and truly feel like this is their home. And we have to find ways to connect that and break that barrier away and make sure we've done it. And listen, as a country as a whole, we are young, if you really do look at it. So we have to, the youth now is even more impressive if we can make these changes, because it's going to happen. It can happen. History, everyone says history repeats itself, but also history in that same thing, we've made a lot of great changes, and again, it wasn't too long ago that for me, what I connect to is that 6 million Jews died in the concentration camps. That's my entire people. And that was less than 70 years ago. So for us, we've made dramatic changes since that point, where now I can say I'm a Jewish American, I'm a Jewish person, and not be fearful of my life. We can make those changes, but it has to happen now. It has to happen now. We made changes in those 70 years, and now for the Black American, it's been way longer. So now it's enough, and we have to get to that point. And I'm hopeful that this momentum will continue. I'm hopeful that the youth of what we do will continue to fight for change and demand change, and don't stop until there is a change.
100%. I really think too, in this time, I personally have been really open to having raw and real conversations with my friends, my Black friends, especially because I never really opened up to them or asked them about, certain things, because I thought it was taboo, which it's not. It's their life. And
Yep.
I really wanted to better understand what's going on and be, I guess, just as a person in society, less offensive, try and do my part to be the best person I can be to lift others up. For example, like one of the things that I asked, I put out a statement, I did, on my personal Instagram. And one of the things that I did was I interchangeably used Black and person of color. And in this sense, like I didn't know what was wrong, what was right. So I asked Leela, one of my best friends, and she's a Black American, to just read it and see if anything I was saying was wrong, because my intentions were there. And I think a lot of people, the intent is there. It's just sometimes we don't realize what's going on behind the scenes and how it is going to affect others. So she, explained to me, okay, in this sense, because you're talking about Black Lives Matter, this is not where it's interchangeable. And I swear, I've never thought of that. And I'm so glad that I talked to her about it, because without that conversation, I probably wouldn't have known. And again, that's just pure ignorance, because I wasn't informed and I wasn't aware. So I think going back to having the open conversations, it's so beneficial to talk to people and just really open your eyes and your perspective on different things. As I mentioned before, a lot of people are like in kind of like a tunnel vision mind, where they're talking, but they're not listening, or they're just kind of, they know what they're going to say before even hearing anyone else's, not opinion, but just they're not listening. So
I think that's the worrisome part. I think it's so divided that We may disagree, but I won't listen, and I'm just one way, and there's no concession. There's no, I get it, and it's just that way is right, that way is wrong, and that's the problem we're at in our country right now. I believe is that it's just too, one way is right, one way is wrong. Right now, the issue is Black lives. Do I think the grand scheme of what we're all talking about, all lives do matter? Yes, but right now the issue is Black lives. It's not all lives, because not all lives are affected the same way. Right now, I do think it is Black lives. I do think that is, the unfortunate situation is that it's such a dividing, because we do recognize that a lot of good policemen put their life on the line every day, and it connected against the wrong situation. So now it's a division of, one versus the other, which it shouldn't be. Right now, the issue is Black Lives Matter, and that's what we should be focused on. And then in a couple of weeks, as we make adjustments, maybe it shifts somewhere else. But right now, you can't be fearful to say it. And I think, like you said before, though, that taboo word, it's certainly taboo, because what do you say to your Black friend? What do you say? If you have a friend who doesn't have a lot of money and they're poor, you buy them a meal, or you put in for their tab and things like that. There's ways you can do it. But what do you say to that friend now that, like, your life matters to me, but what does that mean? And then you get scared that, like, you're imposing on them that their life is not as good as yours. And I don't think that's the case. And I think that's where you get a little bit nervous to say, hey, like, is there anything I can do to help move yourself forward? Because there are plenty of Black Americans who probably are in the same boat of, they're not experiencing what the normal Black person is experiencing. So I think there's a lot of just craziness going on. You just can't be fearful of sounding naive or dumb or ignorant. If you truly don't know, people will see that you just truly don't know, and that's okay. Mm-hmm. And I think that's where sitting back and really diving into the issue for us, it's why we did it. We didn't just want to say, this is it. We obviously were aware of situations, and but again, I felt comfortable as the head coach. I felt comfortable as the ND 87's itself, that we have always been inclusive, and we've never had issues like that. So it didn't need to be an immediate thing. I wanted to sit back and read and understand what we're going through. We've always been a very diverse team, the 87's. We've had, kids from many different countries and many different states, and, we've been very diverse. So to me, that was never an issue for players on my team, players that we were recruiting. It was more of, I wanted to make this mean something. And then when we talked about, not releasing a video Monday because we're not sure of the timing, to me, it made more sense to release something and talk about it and see that the people that wanted to be here and know what the 87's think about it, they'll watch the video and they'll try to understand, and they'll educate themselves. And that's what we should be doing. So if people were concerned about, why didn't Adam make a statement, or why didn't the 87's make a statement? Well, we did. We thought about it a little bit longer. And if you want to know what we're saying, you're going to watch this video and it means something to you. It's not just a rally around and then not mean anything. It's meaning something now. We're posting this on Monday, and that's a couple of days after protests have now kind of simmered down a little bit. Hopefully this keeps it going in a way. We're moving forward. We keep talking about it subtly, and we keep talking about it. We put it in a video. Now we're on it. We're doing our part to keep this thing moving forward, and hopefully others can follow, and the youth can continue to move this forward, and we try to make this place a better place to live for everybody.
Mm-hmm. In regards to not jumping on, I guess I don't even want to call it a bandwagon because I don't want to come off as offensive, but the trend that the black squares, the trend that you just repost something you just see on Instagram. I really want to say that it's great that people are using their platforms, speaking their minds and using their voices, but I think that comes at a price as well. Make sure you're doing your research, talking to your friends about it. Instead of jumping the gun, maybe thinking about it a little bit more. So after I've talked to you about it, I really appreciate you guys not just doing it to do it. I've seen a lot of, like I said, NHL teams, a lot of NFL teams putting out statements, and to the public, it's quote half. and
Mhm.
people are upset at it, but it's like, well, they almost felt pressured to put something out. So I think, everyone has a platform, but
Mhm.
use it in a way that is going to benefit you and your community. It starts at home first, right? So like you said, you're going to preach that to your players. You're going to practice it with your players. And for you as a coach, that is your platform that you have that's really going to impact these people. So it starts from
Yeah.
home. Have conversations with the people that you're spending all your time with. I don't think there's anything wrong with posting on Instagram, but I don't think there's anything wrong with not posting anything, because everyone has a voice in a different way. And I think understanding that is really going to be important in this sense. We're so polarized right now as a country and as
Mhm.
people in general. I think we just need to adapt that mindset that we are stronger together. We do need to come together and really become one and unify. A lot of
Yeah.
things going on are because like we're not.
No, we're not, and it's okay to say that. I think a lot of people, when we grew up, and again, I'm still growing up every day, but when we grew up, when we were in elementary school, middle school, we were taught and we felt that America was the greatest and we are the greatest, and I still feel like we are, but as you get older, you start to see the underbelly and you start to see the diversion of what we are, and understand that it's not this perfectly created world. And I think that's where you sit back and say, like, okay, there's got to be changes. A lot of people will tell you, um, I worked in a prep school. Is when you go to the school, I had such great fond memories of it. But when you go back, you're going to learn the other side of things, and it's going to taint your image of where you are. And honestly, it's a true statement. You start to see things that you don't agree with, but as a student, you never saw that, right? As a kid, I never saw that, but as I get older and see these issues, um, you see, like, wow, we're not as close as we thought. Um, we're not as inclusive as we thought. And I think that is the biggest thing to recognize and say, it's okay. We're not, we need to get better. I think that's why, um, America is great, because you're given this platform to make change. There's an opportunity to make change. Um, and we have to take advantage of that. And,
Mhm.
and that's where I think, when we talk about the social media stuff, and I certainly was supportive of it. Um, and, but I want to see more of what we are doing. What are we doing? What are you doing? Obviously posting is a good first step, but what are you doing in a week from now? What are you doing in 2 weeks and 6 weeks and 7 weeks? And that goes back to the conversation that I'll have with my 87 players as they go to college. College is a great time to really find yourself, find your voice, and be able to do things you'll never be able to do, right? Go on these different trips, join different clubs that you'll never be having a chance to join, and see what that is, see what it's about. And that's what you should do, as a student athlete, is do those things. So I want to see more of that. I want to see more direct plans. I want to see more direct action, because if you want something to change, it's going to get changed. As a coach, if there's a system that we're not beating, or someone's beating us in this, we're going to make the change, or we're going to find someone who can do that change. That's where we're at right now. We have to find a change. And if the people we feel like can't make changes, then you got to go make changes. And we have that opportunity. There's no doubt. You can't say we don't have the opportunity to do that. And hopefully, we will continue to break that barrier down, and find ways to do it. That's the biggest thing.
Mm-hmm. Right. And change comes with signing petitions. Change comes with going to these protests. Change comes with sharing information on your platforms. But I don't think any type of change is wrong. Um, a lot of people that I know that aren't Black, I think, are fearful of speaking out because they don't want to come off as dumb, like we mentioned earlier, that naiveness, that just ignorance, like not knowing, that fear of saying things that are going to offend people. That's a step forward in itself if you talk to
Hmm.
people and really try and understand and learn. So I think the biggest takeaway from this transitional period, with COVID going on, with the Black Lives Matter movement coming back to surface, like all of these things are just, we're growing as a country, and as people we just need to grow and better learn for ourselves and for our society.
Well, I think you said it before as well. And I think it's a conscious effort now. Like when we speak, you don't, like you just said it, you didn't want to use the word bandwagon. You don't like, because you're conscious of like, you don't want to say something that is wrong or comes off as wrong. And I think that conscious effort alone shows that there's change starting to happen, at least for me. And I'm in the same boat, that when I speak out loud, I really try to make sure what I'm going to say makes sense. And if I don't know what the word may be, or I don't know if there's a connotation behind the word, I try not to use it because I don't want to use that anymore. And I think that alone, that conscious effort to how you speak and how you do things, you're changing the platform a little bit and a little bit and a little bit and a little bit more. And again, it may be a very small thing, it might be a conversation that 10 people watch between us, but at least if they start to think, I'm going to watch how I say things and watch how I use words and do that, hopefully that is a small blip to a bigger change. And I know for me, from my standpoint, whenever I talk or whenever I speak, whenever I write something, it is in the back of my head. Am I using this the right way? Is there any connotation that I shouldn't be using, like using the word mob or using bandwagon? Like, I don't know if that is a very racist term. I don't know that. So like, I had to make sure that I know what I'm saying and I don't come across, but I'm also not fearful to come across, because I think people see it in you if you make that conscious effort that you're trying to better yourself, you're trying to educate yourself. And I think it's okay. You're going to make mistakes. I'm going to say something that doesn't make anything, doesn't make a lot of sense, and it's okay. And I think you learn from it, and then you try to grow, and hopefully that educates somebody else. And then it's a ripple effect down the line of people are learning and people are earning something. And that's when change happens, when the mass amount of people do it.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And even this conversation, this isn't scripted. Like we didn't really even talk about what we were going to conversate about before this interview. It's not even an interview, it's just a conversation. But even you and I don't have anything to go off of. We're just going off of feeling and gut, and trusting ourselves that we are going to be conscious and make the effort to not say anything, quote, wrong. I mean, we are just trying to talk about these things in a very vulnerable position. And I think sometimes that is good and it's bad. You know what I mean? Like we're choosing to take away, like come from social media and really put out something different than a lot of other teams. I think, like I said, some of these statements can come across as like half-ass, or, they didn't really put that much time into it because it happened like a day after. Like there's so many things going on. I think this is really a good step forward in itself, just for an organization to have a one-on-one conversation, knowing that you're going to promote social justice in the locker room, on the ice. And I think that's what people just want to know, and of all races, that you're going to do what you can to make society as equal and just as possible.
This is not a scripted conversation. We thought about it the last couple of days, and then we decided on it last night and had a little turnaround time to do it. But again, you're never going to grow if you don't step out of your own personal box. And this is certainly not something that I was, I thought about all night. How am I going to sound, and what am I going to say? And I tried to formulate some thoughts I wanted to get across. But when you're in it and you're in the rawness, that is where hopefully you start to grow, and you feel like you got something out of it, and you feel like there's something you're doing to help. And I think having a conversation like this, where there is no set answers, there is no set questions, it's just kind of a conversation about where we're at and what we're thinking. I think that is a growing mark for us. And again, for us, as we talked about when we brought you on board, we wanted to be at the forefront of doing things different way. We talk about it all the time, the 87 way, but we want to be the first to be in some kind of situation like this, where it's not an easy conversation to just hop on a call and talk about it. You could say something that you don't know is right or wrong, and you could be put in a vulnerable spot. But I think for us, it's always been lead by example, be the leader in the room. And for us just to have this, I think it continues to set us apart, that, we're gonna do things differently. And hopefully when young men and come through us as the 87s, that they know, like, it's not just the on ice stuff, it is the off ice stuff, and it is how you act, it's how you talk, it's what you do that gets you further in life. Because again, at the end of the day, uh, most EHLers are not going to be playing professional sports. They're going to be something else. They're going to be somewhere else. So their voice has to change. So hopefully they've learned something from that. And again, as we continue to do, from our standpoint, is invoke change and try to be a part of that change as best we can.
Right, right. And honestly, this conversation could go on forever and ever about what we're going to do in the future, how as individuals we are going to try and promote social justice and really just have these conversations. But I think too, at a point, we just need to realize we just need to come together and fight for what is right. And there is, you know, like I said, there's no complete right in this situation, in a lot of situations, but do what you think is the right thing to do. As long as your intentions are there, there is, you know, I guess like a limited area for wrong, because as long as you're using your voices, standing up for other people, and I mean, fighting for what is right, that's what's important. And I think this conversation was great because we touched on a lot of things, and I think people who watch it are going to understand better about the 87's and how your guys' process is different from everyone else's. But I think just as people too, I honestly feel really good letting things out on this platform, because I know on a personal platform, I'm doing what I think is right and what I can, and sharing information, having those conversations. But like I said, I've never been a part of an organization like this before. So I feel really good finally talking about it. Like people obviously don't know, but like we've been talking back and forth. On Tuesday, I was like, oh my gosh, I think we should stop the signings, like, because it's Blackout Tuesday. This is the first time a lot of social media managers have gone through something like this, where they have to figure out what's the right thing to do, what's not the right thing to do. But I definitely think that this conversation helped me and lifted kind of like a weight off my shoulders, because I do have platforms in different areas of my life, as do you, you know, as being a coach, as being, you know, in control of your own social media. Like, we do have these platforms, and I think as long as we're pushing for the right direction, then we're doing something positive. And I encourage everyone else to do the same thing. Help in any way you can, whether it's, like I said, donating, going to a protest, sharing on Instagram, having those conversations with your friends that seemed taboo in the past, but now it's an open conversation. I think all of those things can really be beneficial to us, ourselves as people, and as a society, and as a country as well.
Yeah, without a doubt. I think that's why we did it. That's why we're here. And again, you know, I think that is the main reason that we're here, is because we recognize there is a problem. We want change, and we want to see something happen. And we want to be leading the way. And I want my players to watch us. I want our fans to watch us and start a conversation. And if there's something we didn't harp on enough, or there's something we said wrong, let us know. And but we want change, and we recognize there's a problem. And right now, Black lives do matter, and we have to make a conscious effort to be the change and make sure it happens. So obviously, again, these conversations are never easy, but the more we have them, the less taboo they are. And it becomes a normal thing. We have to make this normal. We have to make sure that everyone in this country feels like this is their home, and this is where you can raise your children and not be fearful, and all those things. We have to make sure that is a normal thing for every American, and I think that's where we need to get to. And I'm hopeful we're going to get there. I'm hopeful that our youth will lead the way, and I'm hopeful that people like us, who are in a position, like you said, that have a small world, you as a social media person, me as a coach to young men, let's make change, and then let's continue to push that way. And hopefully that is where our country is headed, and where we're going to be.